Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Mucking Fun Day. Did you have a good weekend? Was it awful? I don't know. Mine was neutral. Nothing bad happened, nothing good happened. It was just, nothing to worry about, which is kind of how I like my weekends. Boring as hell because we don't need excitement, okay? That's happening all during the weekday. We don't need it in the weekend. But this is Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where we look up our stories 10 to 15 minutes before we started, and we haven't had any caffeine. So, let's get into these headlines for today's show. Today on Before Coffee. Where did my stories go? There. Government reviewing use of human rights law to halt deportations in the UK.
And in the United States, 5 recession indicators now raising alarm in the U.S.
Marine Le Pen is barred from seeking public office for embezzlement. An update on the trial that's been going on for months.
And the Center for Disease Control have buried a measles forecast that stressed the need for vaccinations. We're all going to die.
In culture news, Rotterdam opens Portlantis Storytelling machine to explore the city's past, present, and future.
And it's National Tater Day. So if you're looking for a reason to celebrate today, it is potato. On March 31st, 2025 on Before Coffee.
National Tater Day. Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. That line is such an iconic line, and I always thought it was only a film line. Like, it was just too memeable to be, but no, it's in the book. He says that, like that, in the book. He says potatoes to Gollum right to his face like an asshole. He deserves it. But yes, we've made it to another week of covering our news, and the world is still, for the most part, keeping it together. At least here on the European side. Maybe not the American side, sadly, but I can't control any of that. I mean, I can't control the European side either, but you've got to find the positive somewhere.
We have the
so let's roll our segue wheel, if I can find it somewhere. Here it is.
Right, I have to pay attention now. Paying attention.
Wait, you don't pay attention usually?
I'm sorry, what was that? Anyway.
All right, you're going to have to give me an accurate metaphor or simile. As we talk about embezzlement. Now, anybody who's been watching the show for, I don't know, months, we did talk about how Marine Le Pen, who is kind of I think she is the leader of the far-right French party, has been in court for embezzlement, taking funds and give them to her friends or give them to herself, buying new purses, that kind of stuff. And as of today, a French court has barred Marine Le Pen from seeking public office for 5 years with immediate effect for embezzlement. This is on AP News by Sylvie Corbet. A hammer blow to the far right's leaders' presidential hopes and an earthquake for French politics. Although Le Pen can appeal the verdict, such a move won't suspend her ineligibility, which could rule her out of the 2027 presidential race. The court ruling was as political as well as judicial temblor. What is a temblor? A judicial temblor for France, hobbling one of the leading contenders to succeed President Emmanuel Macron at the end of his second and final term, scheduled to last into 2027. Le Pen herself wasn't around to hear the chief judge pronounce the sentence that threw her career in a tailspin. By then, she'd already strode out of the courtroom when the judge first indicated that Le Pen would be barred from office without saying straight away for how long. Wow. She just ran away. She left the courtroom. We love a drama queen. Earlier today, from the front row of the court, Le Pen showed no immediate reaction when the judges first declared her guilty, but she grew more agitated as the proceedings continued. She repeatedly nodded her head in disagreement as the judge went into greater detail with the verdict, saying Le Pen's party had illegally used European Parliament money for its own benefit. Incredible, she whispered at one point. Yeah, see, that's probably the worst part about this crime. It wasn't French people, oh, well, you voted for her and she's corrupt, tough luck. It was European Parliament money, so that's from all over the place. That's from other countries that she was embezzling money from, which I think was why the crime is even greater than just embezzlement, because you're cross-country embezzlement at that point. I don't know if they said that at all, but the judge also handed down guilty verdicts to 8 other current or former members of her party, like her, previously served on European Parliament lawmakers. The sentence could prevent her from running for president in 2027. She has described such a scenario as a political death. The verdict was a resounding defeat for Le Pen and her party, as well as finding her and 8 other former European lawmakers guilty of embezzling public funds. The court also convicted 12 other people who served as parliamentary aides for Le Pen and what is now the National Rally Party, formerly the National Front. The judge said Le Pen had been at the heart of a system that her party used to siphon off EU Parliament money. The judge said Le Pen and other co-defendants didn't enrich themselves personally, but the ruling described the embezzlement as a democratic bypass that deceived the parliament and voters. Le Pen and 24 other officials in the National Rally were accused of having used money intended for EU parliamentary aides to pay staff who worked for the party between 2004 and 2016, in a violation of the 27 nation bloc's regulations. Le Pen and her co-defendants denied any wrongdoing. Of course, what she just said is a political death. Of course she denied it. But it doesn't matter, she's guilty. Le Pen, 56, was runner-up to President Emmanuel Macron in the 2017 and 2022 presidential elections, and her party's electoral support has grown in recent years. During the 9-week trial that took place in late 2024, she argued that ineligibility would have the effect of depriving me of being a presidential candidate and disenfranchise her supporters. There are 11 million people who voted for the movement I'd represent. So tomorrow, potentially millions and millions of French people would see themselves deprived of their candidate in the election, she told the panel of 3 judges. Yeah, okay. So I may be guilty, but you can't stop me from being elected because, like, I represent other people. So, like, if you make me guilty and bar me from being elected, then you're disenfranchising them. That's what she's saying, right? Yeah, she's trying to guilt them into not finding her guilty for the crime she committed. Le Pen's seeming natural successor in the 2027 elections would be Jordan Bardella, Le Pen's 29-year-old protege, who succeeded her at the helm of the party in 2021. Le Pen denied accusation she was at the head of the system meant to siphon off EU Parliament money to benefit her party, which she led from 2011 to 2021. I was there, but I had no idea this was going on. She argued that's the risk of being a leader, though. If something bad happens, the thing you lead, you gotta take responsibility for it. If you're not ready to do that, how is she ready to lead a country? She argued and said that it was acceptable to adapt the work of aides and paid by the European Parliament in the needs of the lawmakers, including some political work related to the party. Hearings showed that some EU money was used to pay for Le Pen's bodyguard, who was once her father's bodyguard, as well as her personal assistant. Prosecutors requested a 2-year prison sentence and a 5-year period of ineligibility for Le Pen. Le Pen said she felt they were only interested in preventing her from running for president. Well, maybe, but that's why you gotta keep your nose clean if you want to be a leader of a country. You gotta keep your nose clean. And she did not do that. Whether or not she was aware, I'm pretty sure she was. She was making excuses why it was totally allowed to do the things she did, which, makes it sound like she was aware. Oh no, this is allowed. We can pay people to do national things in international government money. Yeah. I can siphon that money wherever I want. It's my money now. It belongs to me. Nope. It actually doesn't. That's the kind of the thing about government money, is it doesn't really belong to you. They need to account for all of it, because otherwise the taxpayers get pissed off. Hey, what happened to that $5 million we sent to the Le Pen? Those taxpayers gonna be happy about that when they don't know what happened to that money.
Embezzlement.
Yeah. Embezzlement.
Yeah, it's in them white collar crimes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
I find it interesting they wanted to put her in prison for 2 years. I don't know. It didn't say anything about if she actually is going to get that, or they're going to, I can't go to prison and give her something else. I don't know.
Embezzlers go to in the United States and go to the country club prisons anyway.
Yeah.
The prisons. They go, oh no, It's so inconvenient, they can only go to the beauty salon once a week or whatever. So terrible. Metaphor, right? I guess you're ready for metaphor.
Yep.
Oh, embezzlement is like a slow draining bathtub. You really don't notice it. At least the embezzler hopes you don't notice it because they're taking a little bit at a time from the bottom, right? A little bit at a time from the bottom, slowly. We're not noticing that disappearing little bit of water. But eventually the water, hey, why is the tub so low? Anyway.
And why is all the water going to France? Specifically.
All right.
Spin
the wheel.
Spin the wheel for me.
Let's see if I can do a story on recession.
All right, I also have to do an accurate metaphor or simile.
Ooh. This is from Newsweek.com. Hugh Cameron might be related to us. I think we actually might be Camerons or McDougalls and not Stewarts. At least that's what my Y-DNA tells the so-called experts who might not be experts. I'm not sure. Anyway, this is from Newsweek.com. Hugh Cameron, while the Trump administration is optimistic about the country's growth prospects, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick going so far as to say America should absolutely not prepare for a recession. Economists are voicing gloomy forecasts. Moody's chief economist Mark Zandi on Thursday compared the current levels of uncertainty to those seen during 9/11 and the 2008 financial crash, having previously said that he felt the country was being pushed into recession by Stinky the Clown's tariff policies. With input from U.S. economists, Newsweek identified 5 key indicators that experts are monitoring to evaluate the likelihood of an economic downturn. Number 1 would be consumer confidence. Economist Gary Huffar told Newsweek that measures of consumer confidence were among the most important gauges of a country's economic well-being. Optimism with the state of economy and one's personal finances translate into consumer spending, estimated to account for over 2/3 of the nation's gross domestic product, or GDP. A change of feelings about the economic backdrop is often a harbinger of things to come and precedes a downshift in consumer spending and business investment, according to Jeffrey Roach of LPL Financial. The conference's board... You like the way I read that? The Conference Board's latest Consumer Confidence Index, arguably the most commonly consulted measure, saw a 7.2 drop between February and March. This reading, which came in below expectations, marked the 4th consecutive month of declines and brought the index to its lowest since 2021, when the country was still grappling with COVID pandemic, which is kind of an anomaly, right? Of course, you're not going to have normal economy. Since, and of course it spiked right back up right after COVID. And Trump got credit for that, which is complete horseshit. Unemployment goes to 20%. It's obviously going to go back down. But, Trump made it go down. No, he didn't. He caused the crisis in the first place by ignoring the pandemic. Well, let's ignore that fault. Let's ignore that bullshit. The Expectations Index, which weighs consumers' forecasts for economic conditions in the short term, tumbled to 65.2, the lowest reading in 12 years, and below an 80-point threshold that the Conference Board said usually signals a recession ahead. 65, when below 80, is the threshold. Not good. Preliminary results from University of Michigan's widely watched Consumer Sentiment Index also revealed a drastic decline of American optimism in March. Consumer sentiment, current assessments of economic conditions, and consumers' expectations of the future deteriorated across all political affiliations and for multiple facets of the economy, with the latter dropping over 15% from February. Both measures, according to KPMG's chief economist, Diane Swank, her name is Diane Swank, show a simultaneous softening in labor market conditions and rising fears of inflation. The two do not tend to rise in tandem, Swank told Newsweek, and reinforce concerns of stagflation related to tariffs. Others hold less bleak views about the recent consumer confidence readings, with Zandi telling CNN, on Thursday that consumer confidence is not screaming recession yet, but adding that indicator is moving in the wrong direction. Another indicator is credit card late payments and default rates. Hofbauer also cited difficulties paying off credit card debts as a warning signal for the economy. U.S. credit card debt reached a record high of $1.2 trillion in the fourth quarter of 2024, now comprising about 6% of America's total $18 trillion of debt, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Its report shows levels of serious delinquency, defined as late payments of more than 90 days, edged up in the quarter and now double the levels of early 2022. According to Fitch Ratings, private credit defaults rates rose to 5.7% for the 12 months period ending in February compared to 5% in January. The rise of buy now, pay later services such as Klarna, dubbed the new credit card without the plastic by personal finance expert George Camel, that's his name, has also been pointed to as a sign of America's growing debt struggles. Camel told Newsweek that the company's latest partnership with DoorDash will allow Americans to eat their way further into debt, 4 payments at a time. All right. I can't eat. Let's call DoorDash and get his credit card. That's not going to cost me money later. Also, another measure is business uncertainty. Economists also point to growing business uncertainty and small businesses uncertainty as a worrying sign of the economy. The National Federation of Independent Business, NFIB, Uncertainty Index climbed 4 points to 104 in February, the second highest reading since it began in 1973. The percentage of respondents who believed it was a good time to expand their business experienced its steepest monthly drop since April 2020. Meanwhile, the net percentage of owners expected economic improvement declined by 10 points from January to 37%. Labor costs identified as the most pressing issue for business owners increased by 3 points to 12%, just 1 point shy of the survey's record high of 13% in December of 2021. Of course, December of 2021, the economy was probably starting to overheat and inflation was starting to kick in. So that's not a good sign. Uncertainty is high and rising in the Main Street, and for many reasons. NFIB chief economist Bill Dunkelberg, this is a great article for names. Hi, my name is Bill Dunkelberg. All right, Bill Dunkelberg. Those small business owners expecting better business conditions in the next 6 months dropped, and the percent viewing the current period as a good time to expand fell, but remains well above where it was in the fall. Inflation remains a major problem, ranked second behind the top problem, labor quality. I don't know about that. According to a March report from Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, while year-ahead expectations of sales growth have edged up in recent months, businesses now remain more uncertain about future sales growth than they were before the pandemic. Swank said that the NFIB data points to higher prices with less hiring or no hiring. That reflects a stagflation nature of tariffs, which both erode profit margins while some portion of it is passed on to consumers, she said. Yep, tariffs are killing our economy. What a shock. Trade policy uncertainty index is the next thing, as well as uncertainty regarding future business conditions. Trepidation specifically linked to trade policies of the new administration has risen significantly in 25. Stock market volatility has been fueled by Diaper Donnie's growing list of tariffs and their stop-start implementation, which has businesses and analysts questioning the direction of U.S. trade policy and the potential impacts of this. According to the St. Louis Federal Reserve, economic policy uncertainty around the trade policy specifically have risen in recent months to levels not seen since 2019 when U.S. trade war with China was in full swing. We started another trade war with Canada, of all places. We're so smart. Come on, man. Who thinks that's a good idea? Who thinks that's a good idea? Starting a trade war with Canada and Europe. No fucking buddy thinks that's a good idea. Only Vladimir Putin thinks it's a good idea. The trade policy uncertainty index has soared to a record high amidst previous spikes during pandemic and trade war with China look like blips on the radar screens, Swank said. She warned that with Trump's first-term dispute with China hit both investments and consumer spending, the new tariffs cover a much larger swath of goods, countries, and often are stacked. Of course. And it favors Russia. Two 10% tariff hikes on China added to the 10.8% already in place. Then add another 25% for their Venezuelan oil at 25%. That raises the tariff to 55.8%, she explained. Then there are specific sector tariffs such as steel, which get an additional 25% on that. The range and scope of tariffs easily gets up to levels not seen prior to the 1930s. Ooh. It could be as high as it was in 1906. Inflation expectations is your last one. While inflation has showed signs of easing towards Fed's 2% target, confidence that this trend will continue remains low. According to the University of Michigan, a year ahead inflation expectations rose from 3% in February to 4.9% in March. This marks the highest reading since November of 22 and the third consecutive month of unusually large increases of 0.5 percentage points or more. The Conference Board's most recent report also found that the average 12-month inflation expectations had risen from 5.8% to 6.2% between February and March, which senior economist Stephanie Grichard said, reflected consumers' persistent concerns about high prices for key household staples like eggs and impact to tariffs. According to the recent 1,000-person survey by life insurance and asset management firm Allianz Life, 71% of Americans believe inflation will worsen over the next 12 months and increase from 60% in the fourth quarter of 24. When will we know there's a recession? A recession, by definition, is when we see 2 quarters of contraction accompanied by a drop in employment. Beyond the warning signs on the horizon, establishing that the country is in the grasp of a recession will require U.S. GDP to fall. According to the latest reading released by the Bureau of Economics Analysis, the U.S. economy expanded 2.4% in the fourth quarter of 24, slightly ahead of forecast, but below the growth seen in the third quarter. Unemployment, meanwhile, rose slightly in February. And it's going to just keep getting bad. With cuts to the government, the country's largest employer, showing no signs of abating and even an expanding list of countries and goods covered by the administration's tariffs, economists will be watching closely to see if either could tip the balance towards a recession. So there's your economic news. Just an update. It's always a snapshot of economics. And the stock market has not been doing good. That's a sign of economic uncertainty, and rich people are nervous about buying. When they're nervous about buying stuff, that's one of them indicators. Anyway, back to you, your metaphor.
Yeah, I feel like people right now want to get a medal for participating in the economic marathon when it's just started. And it's going to be a long one before we're finished with it. It's going to be a long marathon. These next 4 years are going to feel like 20 years, I think, economically.
Yeah, capitalism, especially in the stock market, is all about speculation.
Yep.
I think the economy's going to tank. You're not more likely to spend money. You're less likely to spend money. Or unless you're shorting the economy, which is what's happening to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Shorting the stock market. They're intentionally making stocks low so they can get bargains. Yeah. Anyway.
Hello, Ayushi. We will now continue our segue for you and my next story. Alliteration headline. Get out your pencil.
My favorite.
You should need to write that down. I need to write it down because I think too much.
I do. I definitely gotta write it down.
Alright, let's talk about the government of the UK reviewing the use of the human rights law to halt deportations. This is by David Lynch on The Independent. The government is reviewing how international human rights laws apply to migration cases, Yvette Cooper said, ahead of convening a summit with other countries aimed at tackling people smuggling gangs. The more people say people smuggling gangs, the more I think it's not a real thing. I know it is a real thing. It's basically human trafficking, but they say it like it's almost become a buzzword now, right? Oh, we've got to save the country from these human smuggling gangs. Ministers are reviewing how Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, ECHR, the right to family life, applies to migration law, the Home Secretary signaled. The ruling has been used to halt the deportation of migrants from the UK, including an Albanian man who was able to remain partly because of his young son's aversion to foreign chicken nuggets. Nice. The Home Secretary will lead a gathering of ministers and enforcement staff from 40 countries in London on today and tomorrow, which is going to be the 1st of April, right? Yeah, 1st of April.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a joke, though, to discuss international cooperation on illegal migration, as well as supply routes, criminal finances, and online adverts for people smuggling. Ahead of the meeting, she was asked by the BBC's Sunday with Laura Quensberg's program if she could confirm reports that ministers are reviewing how the ECHR applies to migration law. Media reports in recent weeks have suggested that the UK government wants to follow the lead of Denmark, which is said to take a tougher stance on how the right to family life is applied to migration cases. Mrs. Cooper replied, "Well, we continue to support international law. That is really important. It's because we support international law that we've managed to get new agreements with France and Germany. There have been some cases that do raise some real significant concerns. That is also about the way in which immigration asylum systems operate." She added, "It's about the application, including of Article 8, as the Prime Minister has said, so we are reviewing all of this area to make sure that really the immigration asylum system works effectively in the way that Parliament meant it to, and make sure that there is a sort of proper sense of control in the system." At the coming week's Migration Summit, criminal finances will be focus of the discussion, which will look at how to follow the money of smugglers globally and to share approaches from different countries. Hundreds of millions are believed to be transferred illicitly through the Hawala system, for example, which is a legitimate means of transferring money around the world, but also used in payments linked to channel crossings. Countries including Albania, Vietnam, and Iraq, where migrants have traveled to the UK, will join the talks, as well as France, the US, and China. A record number of people have arrived in the UK after crossing the English Channel so far this year. The government is also expanding the right to work checks to cover casual, temporary workers in amendments to the Border Security, Asylum, and Immigration Bill. The legislation is continuing through Parliament with plans to introduce new criminal offenses and hand counter-terror-style powers to police and enforcement agencies to crack down on people smuggling gangs. Ah, yes. I love when the police are giving anti-terrorist-style powers. You're a terrorist! What makes you think that? My own decisions. Ah, yeah. Okay, great. In addition, the addition announced on Sunday will widen the right to work scheme for gig economy workers not currently covered in the existing law. Well, good for the gig economy workers. As we know, we've been covering stories for like 2-3 years about, people trying to get into the UK to, they have an orchestra. They're going to do some concerts. Oh, you might be, you fit the bill of those people we don't want to enter our country, so you're not allowed in. Like, what? For a while, we've told you guys we're coming. We're just here to, no, you guys are trying to get in so that you can stay in illegally. Alright, you're being a little paranoid there, buddy. Viable business could be fined up to £60,000 or face closures, director disqualifications, and up to 5 years in prison if checks are not carried out. Ms. Cooper told the BBC employers need to take action that prevents the illegal working in the first place. Yeah, just hire British people that don't want to do the work at all, which is probably why you're hiring immigrants. I know. Crazy. Don't you want to go pick Brussels sprouts out of the ground? You don't want to do that?
I would love that, as long as I got a nice chair to sit in while I was doing it.
Well, your back's going to be a mess. Though, to be fair, I think they just use a machine for Brussels sprouts.
If you wear knee pads, it shouldn't be bad for your back. You're just on your knees.
Yeah.
Bad for your knees.
Yeah, for sure.
The ground isn't that hard.
Ms. Cooper also said, "We've had a 40% increase in illegal working raids since the election." Okay, but that doesn't mean anything. Hey, you know what we did? We had way more raids. Did you catch anybody? No, but we've had 40% more. That's what you just said there.
Oh, yeah. How do you like the United States and deporting actual American citizens and putting them in prison for not being taking away their driver's license, so they can't
exactly. We can't
already...
prove you belong here because we took all your ID. Oh, great, thanks.
Yeah, the United States is currently disappearing people at a record rate never seen since.
So some of the changes that we've made that are having an impact already is a 20% increase in returns. Over 19,000 people returned have no right to be in the UK, and we'll update those figures shortly. And then also a nearly 40% increase in illegal working raids and arrests. So they've increased by 40%, they've increased their returns by 20%. And yet again, I don't know what they're deciding people are allowed to stay in the country for. I think it's just like they were here illegally at the end. That's what it sounds like, right? Oh, they don't have a green card, they don't have a visa saying they're supposed to be here, and that's it. We're sending them back at the end. Come back and apply with your proper paperwork, I guess. But what did we talk about earlier? Laws are there to punish poor people, so that paperwork costs a lot of money that they can't afford. Mm-hmm. And they already spent all their money getting smuggled in the country to begin with. But we need to do more because it's not reaching the gig economy where employers don't have to do eligibility work checks, and we can end up with criminal gangs promising people illegal work just as they then take their money. Yeah, I think there was even a article I did a couple months back, maybe even last year and during the summer, where there were people from Eastern Europe trapped in the UK because they were kind of tied up in this criminal gang work compromise where it's like, yeah, we basically lived in a box and they told us we work here and we had to give them all our money, and then they would take our money and pay the rent and give us food. But they were basically in an illegal work gang, and they were forced. They were saved by the UK finding out about them because they were being abused. But that's happening in the UK right now. So I think that's what they're trying to sell this as an idea of we're trying to protect people. Okay, we're trying to protect the people that are being taken advantage of. Speaking of the Times newspaper, Miss Cooper also signaled she wanted to crack down on the number of people who have arrived in the UK on student or work visa and since claimed asylum. Okay, yeah. So it's like, yeah, I came here to study and then I decided my country sucks. I need asylum. Now that I'm an educated Russian woman, I need asylum because they might send me back to Russia to get killed. The US just did that to no, I'm serious. They just did that to there was a Russian student who, I don't know. I haven't checked my facts, so somebody can fact check me, but there was a Russian student who was anti-Ukraine war, and they sent her back to Russia, and everyone's like, okay, so she's dead now in a gulag somewhere? Because they're just sending her back to Russia as an anti-Ukraine war person? Yeah, okay. Anyways, Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Alex Burgart, criticized the government's decision to scrap the Conservatives' Rwanda plan after coming to power last year. Yeah, I think that's great. Don't just swipe it under the rug. That's what the Rwanda plan was. We don't like all these asylum seekers. Just put them over there. Then we don't have to pay attention. Asked about the government's plan to expand right-to-work checks, the senior Tory said, this is the wrong end of the problem. The fact of the matter is that when the government came into power last summer, it scrapped the deterrent program that we had set up, that we had been in process of implementing. It was ready to go when Labour came in. They won a majority and they scrapped it. That is now the deterrent program. Yeah, deterrent. I really wish deterrents worked. I think they do in your brain, but they don't actually work in reality. People are going to do anything in order to survive, whether it is, I could get sent to Rwanda if I illegally enter the UK. Well, at least I'm not, I don't care. They're paying for it. What do I care? Anyways, there's my story on immigration, my favorite topic, and how the UK is trying to find ways to both save people and free themselves of the problem. And I don't know if they're going to be able to achieve that balancing act, but we'll see what happens.
Right. Possibly. Oh, I have an alliteration headline.
Yep.
Alliteration headline. Human highway hustlers harmful. There you go. We were talking about trafficking gangs.
Facts,
It's called the human.
Great facts.
The human highway.
That's also, Chris says hi in chat.
Hi. The old timer with the reading glasses is here. Time to spin the wheel for my story.
Spinning the wheel.
man, it's still chilly in here.
Right, bad pun. So give me something to make a pun about.
Measles. You need a measly pun.
Puns about measles.
That's a measly little thing. There you go, is your pun. I already gave it to you. Anyway, no. This is from ProPublica.com. You can use that, I don't care. There ain't no rules. But ProPublica.com. This is from Patricia Callahan. This has a 10 to 13 minute story. Hopefully you can rig through it quicker than that. The CDC buried a measles forecast that stressed the need for vaccinations. No surprise. Leaders of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention ordered staff this week not to release their experts' assessment that found the risk of catching measles as high in areas near outbreaks where vaccination rates are lagging, according to the internal records reviewed by ProPublica. In an aborted plan to roll out the news, the agency would have emphasized the importance of vaccinating people against a highly contagious and potentially deadly disease that has spread to 19
Repeat that
states.
again. What did you say? Highly contagious and deadly? Is that what the words you used? Hello?
Highly contagious and potentially deadly. Yes. Yes. Measles kills. It does. It's a deadly disease. That's why they came with the vaccine for it. Children were dying. A CBC spokesman told ProPublica in a written statement that the agency decided against releasing the assessment because it does not say anything that the public doesn't already know. She added that the CDC continues to recommend vaccines as the best way to protect against measles. Well, thank you. But you don't want to release your report because it confirms your opinion. Okay, I don't want to back up my own opinion now. Okay, you have an opinion, but that research, fuck it. Anyway, what the nation's top public health agency said next shows a shift in its long-standing messaging about vaccines, a sign that it may be falling under the Health and Human Service Secretary Brainworm Bobby F. Kennedy Jr. Brainword Bobby, let's just call him that. Brainword Bobby, a longtime critic of vaccines. The decision to vaccinate is a personal one, the statement said, echoing a line from a column that Brainword Bobby wrote for the Fox News website. People should consult with their healthcare provider to understand their options to get a vaccine and should be informed about the potential risks and benefits associated with vaccines. ProPublica shared the new CDC statement about personal choice and risk with Jennifer Nuzzo, director of Pandemic Center at Brown University of Public Health. To her, the shift in messages and the squelching of routine announcements is alarming. A routine announcement. I'm a bit stunned by that language, Nuzzo said. No vaccine is without risk, but that makes it sound like it's a very active coin toss of a decision. We've already had more cases of measles in 25 than we had in 24, and it's only March. It's spread to multiple states. It's not a coin toss at this point. For many years, the CDC hasn't minced words on vaccines. It's promoted them with confidence. One campaign was called Get My Flu Shot. The agency's website told medical providers they played a critical role in helping parents choose vaccines for their children. Instead of saying, what do you want to do about shots? Say, your child needs 3 shots today. Exactly. Your child needs 3 shots. This is mandatory or they're not going to public school.
Exactly.
What? You're going to kill everybody in the goddamn town, you stupid bastards. Nuzzo wishes that CDC forecasters would put up more details of their data and evidence on the spread of measles, not less. The growing scale and severity of the measles outbreak and the urgent need for more data to guide the response underscores why we need a fully staffed and traditional CDC and more resources for state and local health departments. Got a pun yet? Kennedy's agency oversees the CDC on Thursday announced it was poised to eliminate 2,400 jobs there. Oh yeah, that's right. We're going to solve your problems by making more unemployed people. When asked what role, if any, Kennedy played in the decision to not release the risk assessment, HHS communications director said the aborted announcement was part of an ongoing process to improve communication processes, nothing more, nothing less. The CDC, he reiterated, continues to recommend vaccination as the best way to protect against measles. Secretary Kennedy believes that the decision to vaccinate is a personal one. Now let's do that again. Brainworm Bobby Brainworm Bobby Kennedy believes that the decision to vaccinate is a personal one, and that people should consult with their healthcare provider to understand their options to get a vaccine. No, here's the thing. Your kid's not going to kindergarten until he gets vaccinated. Now go take your kid home. Don't bring your kid to this school again.
Go homeschool them. Stay in your house. Yeah. Stay away from public people.
Oh, yeah. Watch Fox News all day to get your propaganda properly in line before you have a discussion with your friends at work who watch the same news as you, and they go and agree with everything you say because you both watch the same news, and you all reinforce each other's wrong opinions about everything. Anyway, it is important that American people have radical transparency and be informed to make personal health care decisions. Yeah, okay. Responding to questions about the criticism of decisions among some CDC staff, Nixon, unfortunate name, wrote, "Some individuals of the CDC seem more interested in protecting their own status or agenda than aligning with this administration and the true mission of public health. No, we actually believe in our jobs and not politics, asshole. You're one playing politics."
I think he got confused.
CDC, yeah, I can't believe the people that don't share the politics that I do are disagreeing with me. What a jerk. Nixon, perfect name for him. CDC risk assessment was carried out by the Center for Forecasting Outbreak Analysis, which relied in part on new disease data from the outbreak in Texas. The CDC created the center to address a major shortcoming laid bare during the COVID-19 pandemic. It functions like a national weather service for infectious diseases, harnessing data and expertise to predict the course of outbreaks like a meteorologist warns of storms. Other risk assessments by the center have been posted by the CDC, even though their conclusions might seem obvious. By late February, example, forecasters analyzing the spread of H5N1 bird flu said people who had come in contact with potentially infected animals or contaminated surfaces or fluids faced a moderate to high risk of contracting the disease. The risk to the general U.S. population, they said, was low. In the case of measles assessment, modelers at the center determined that the risk of the disease for the general public in the U.S. is low, but they found the risk is high in communities with low vaccination rates that are near outbreaks or share close social ties to those areas with outbreaks. The CDC had moderate confidence in the assessment, according to the International Q&A that explained the findings. The agency said lacks detailed data about the onset of illness for all patients in West Texas and is still learning about the vaccination rates in affected communities, as well as travel and social contact among those affected. Of course, you're laying off 2,400 workers. I'm sure that'll make it a lot easier for them to assess things, right? Of fewer people to do the same job, so most of the jobs aren't going to get done. And then they're just going to make the agency more inefficient, and then they're complaining that it's inefficient and shut it down. That's the plan. The plan is to shut down the government to screw us all over because Donald Trump works for Russia. I just want to keep emphasizing that plain and simple point. Trump works for Russia. This is a fact. This is something you should have known since 2016. I've known it since 2016. Trump works for Russia. It's been blaringly obvious. This week, though, the number of confirmed cases rose to 483. More than 30 agency staff were told in an email that after a discussion in the CDC's director's office, leadership does not want to pursue putting this on the website. The cancellation was not normal at all, said a CDC staff member who spoke anonymously for fear of reprisal with layoff looming. Well, say goodbye to your job. Somebody's already snitched you out, I guarantee it. Yeah, you're going to turn everybody into snitches so they can keep their job. I've never seen a roll-up plan that was canceled at that far along in the process. Anxiety among CDC staff has been building over whether the agency will bend its public health messages to match those of Brainworm Bobby, a lawyer who founded the anti-vaccine group and referred clients to a law firm suing a vaccine manufacturer. During Kennedy's first week on the job, HHS halted the CDC campaign that encouraged people to get flu shots during the ferocious flu season. On the night that Diaper Donnie began his firing probationary employees across the federal government, some CDC flu web pages were taken down. Remnants of some of the campaign web pages were restored after NPR reported this. So this goes on for a little bit of a while. But the gist of it is the people that are playing politics accuse other people playing politics when they're the ones playing politics. That's how that's called projection. When you're doing something, you use another person to doing it. That way, you're Teflon. You're sealed from criticism. You see, I can't be doing it because that guy's doing it. You see how that works? This is how projection works. I'm a liar. I projected. So yeah, we're doomed again as a species, but the United States leading the way in doomedness. So where's your pun?
The news on the outbreak of measles and those who don't get vaccinated, man, those people make me sick. With measles. And then, I died 10 years later from measles. Because that's the story we did like 2 weeks ago, right? That kid got measles when they're an infant, and then they died at like 18 or 17 from the measles.
Yeah,
it gets you it gets you in the end. No matter what age you are, you will die of measles if you catch measles, okay?
He was just sitting around all that time, smoking cigarettes, playing cards, waiting for him to turn 17. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll get to it. Yeah,
measles got me.
The measles got
Thanks.
me.
And the thing is, it wasn't because their parents didn't get them vaccinated. It was because some other kid wasn't vaccinated, right? And they caught the measles from them.
Right.
So.
And you cannot get. I believe you can't get vaccinated. Your mother can get vaccinated while you're in the womb, but you can't get vaccinated until you're, I think, 9 months old. So in that time, there's a danger that you could get measles.
And we're gonna have to put babies in a bubble to protect them from idiots. Anyways, segue wheel, and let's talk about another bad pun. We're just double rolling today, man. Yeah, the wheel is on something. We're going to talk about Rotterdam opening up a new storytelling machine called Portlantis, which it's not in Rotterdam. It's, I would say more like South Holland is opening up a new building called Portlantis that caters to Rotterdam and celebrating its past, present, and future in Europe's largest port and the spirit of an underdog city. This is on Euronews Culture by Harriet Quick. The center, billed as a machine for storytelling, is one of the series' new cultural attractions in a city known for innovations and experimentation. You might be consistently blown away by the sheer scale of international ports with their monster cargo ships, cranes, and acres of containers stacked like Lego bricks and fleets of trucks. But how many of us really know how a port operates? Rotterdam, the biggest and busiest in Europe, is demystifying its past, present, and looking to the future with the new Portlantis, a massive visitor and exhibition center designed by renowned Rotterdam-based architecture firm MVRDV and located at the port's southwestern corner. Constructed at 5 rotated spaces with an outer red staircase to the rooftop, the building is surrounded by dunes with a view out to the North Sea and to the massive cargo docks. The no-nonsense industrial design was masterminded by architect Winnie Moss, one of MVRDV's founding partners. The project, commissioned and funded by Rotterdam Port Authority, is close to the Moss's heart. As a kid, I fell in love with the landscape of the boxes, and I biked and hiked around these gigantic structures. It's the opposite of cuteness we associate with the Netherlands, said Moss. The question was how to compete with windmills and ships and containers. The structure is made from materials of the port, recycled steel, which is resistant to salt, dust, and wind. Located on Maasvlakte 2, a vast artificial land extension of 44 kilometers from the city center, Portlantis' design upholds circular economy principles and is fully energy neutral thanks to efficient insulation, 266 solar panels, and its own wind turbine. Oh, that's cool. There's a little shot of people on top looking out to the sea and to the port. Its form echoes the port's stacked containers, but boasts panoramic windows and a soaring 22-meter atrium hung with a gigantic kinetic sculpture featuring chrome yellow symbols of the port such as the chain and anchor. It feels a bit James Bond, smiles Moss, but inside the exhibition center is more Willy Wonka. Designed by Herman Kosman of Kosman de Jong of Portlantis' creator-director Pete Armstrong, the three-story show addresses different themes of past, present, and future. The function and operation of the port is so complex, says Strong, of their mission to highlight and animate the port's operation. Myriad trucks and warehouses, 80 container ships docking every day, petrochemical industries processing crude oil, and the possibility of a greener future ahead. Everything you might use in a day, from your sneakers to a banana, water bottle to washing machines, furniture, and bike parts, very likely passes through the port. 60% of the stuff around us has a connection with Rotterdam Port. It's food for thought when you go home, says Strong. The first floor is all about today's port, shipping, cargo, industry, infrastructure, and includes a chemical lab and a workshop. The second floor explores the impact of the port on the economy, employment, and environment. Third considers the future of the port through innovations and energy transitions. Each zone is immersive, interactive with games, workshops, easy to digest information. On reaching the third floor, visitors are given iPads to explore possible solutions and outcomes as the port reinvents itself in the nation's bid to be carbon neutral by 2050. With offshore wind, biofuel production, and battery recycling all potential options. There's even a virtual reality helicopter ride that simulates a daredevil flight over the port. At present, says Strong, 50% of trade is connected to fossil fuels. On the environmental note, a series of vitrines are dedicated to flora and fauna, including many rare birds. Portlantis is small but punchy and is aimed at a broad audience. Everyone from school pupils and students considering a career in the port to corporate visitors, international port authorities, and the general public. Eileen Nix, Portlantis program manager, estimates an annual footfall of 150,000 visitors. The rooftop restaurant and the stroll across the dunes is a big plus. Oh, of course they have a restaurant there. Let's go to the top and eat some food. Some probably fresh fish, right? It's right there on the water. The center, billed as a machine for storytelling, is one of the series of new cultural attractions in Rotterdam, a city known for its innovative thinking and experimentation. With a 10% uptick in visitors numbers in 2024, Rotterdam will soon see the launch of the Phoenix Museum, the world's first center dedicated to migration, the reopening of the Netherlands Photo Museum in its new home, and the former 1903 coffee warehouse in the Docklands area. It seems like the former underdog city is coming into its own. I don't know why it's considered the underdog city. Is it because it got bombed to hell by the Nazis? That's the only reason I would think, right? Literally ruins, right? The city was ruined. They had to rebuild the whole thing. That's why there's no old buildings in Rotterdam for the most part. It's all new, more metropolis. Can't say the word. Metropolis. It's more metropolis looking than it is, kind of Amsterdam, Leiden, which is more of like the original Dutch architecture look, in the 1400s and stuff. Oh, actually, speaking of which, here is the paragraph talking about what I just said. Bombed during the Second World War, the modern cityscape is opposite to the historic Amsterdam. I love when I do the article before I read it. I've already done the article. It's home to a thriving global architecture practices, including MVDRV and OMA, or OMA, and a buoyant design scene with makers benefiting from empty industrial spaces and low rents. But as Portlantis demonstrates, much of its economy and identity revolves around the port. We are not Paris, Rome, or Amsterdam, says Vice Mayor Robert Simmons. We are focused on innovation, and the energy of port can be felt in the city's heart. Of course, one fun thing to do in the actual center of Rotterdam is take one of the ferry across the water there around the port. Also visiting the port. The port is very far away from the center of Rotterdam. There are a lot of crazy buildings in Rotterdam, but I mean, as somebody who lives here for 7 years, there's really not much to do in Rotterdam. So it is really, they have to open these museums so you can go there, because otherwise it's just looking at buildings, biking around, and then you're kind of done. So it's nice to hear that they're opening more and more museums for people to visit, for people to do things there.
Sure.
Good luck, I guess, with the Portlantis. Maybe I'll go there someday. I love learning about industry.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a pun.
Okay, I've got a slogan for Rotterdam. Who gives a damn? Rotterdam! What do you think? All right. Portlantis is kind of a pun. It's kind of a pun on Portland. Portlandia, right?
Yeah.
TV show. What made me think of, but we're not doing that. We're not doing that. I don't think
it's also a combination of Port and Atlantis, right? So.
Yeah, I know, it's clever. It's like a pun on Atlantis. So there you go.
Whole
it's the
story
pun
was
itself. There's a lot of damn puns I could do. But there you go.
All right, let's do our last segue. Did you send me a video?
This is, I just did. I just
Okay.
sent you a video. I think I did, yeah. So it's about measles. Yikes, not measles. Yikes.
All right, you got to give me a mix. Oh, I have to give you a mixed metaphor. My favorite. I love doing mixed metaphors.
Mixed metaphor. This day in history, we're going all the way back and spinning the time wheel back. And this wheel always stops when it gets to the earliest date. Scrolling. Got to keep on scrolling. Okay, rawhide. Anyway, 1521, the first Roman Catholic Mass in the Philippines was celebrated on the island of Limasawa. Read it like Walter Cronkite. 1596, French mathematician, scientist, and philosopher René Descartes, widely considered the father of modern philosophy, was born. And he, of course, is the one that said, "I think, therefore I am." I think. Anyway, 1732, composer Joseph Haydn was born in Rohrau, Austria. Rohrau. Sounds like Scooby-Doo's trying to say it. We were born in Rohrau. Reggie. Excuse me. One of the most important figures in the development of classical style in music during the 18th century. So, happy birthday to Haydn. Hear about Haydn, that's who they're talking about.
Kevin Bacon.
1854. Kevin Bacon? Yeah. I don't know how many degrees of Kevin Bacon he's got, but it's got to be at least 6. Because he was born almost 200 years ago. Almost 300 years. Almost 300 years ago. 1854, U.S. Commodore Matthew Perry signed the Treaty of Kanagawa in Japan, ending the country's period of seclusion. What were they doing until 1854? Watch the movie Shogun, or watch that show. Maybe
that's what they were doing.
Slide into it. Yeah. It's a mini-series. 1870, Thomas Peterson Munday of Perth Amboy, New Jersey, became the first African American to vote under the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Congratulations to him. And he won a clock. No, he won anything. 1918, clocks in the 1918, this is the day you set yesterday was the day you set your clocks ahead. Well, 1918, clocks in the United States were set 1 hour ahead as daylight savings time went into operation for the first time. So 1918, it was Woodrow Wilson administration. He's the one to blame. Stupid daylight savings time.
Thanks, Woodrow.
Thank you for the bridge, too. Wilson Bridge is a famous bridge in D.C. Anyway, 1928, Canadian-born American ice hockey player Gordie Howe was born in Saskatchewan, Canada.
How was he born?
Canada? He was born on the ice. He was a hat trick. One of the game's greatest player, known for both his scoring ability and his toughness. He played so long that he actually played long enough where he had 3 of his sons were in hockey in the NHL while he was still playing. That's how long he played. And Gordie Howe's a hero in Canada and the United States because he played for the Detroit Red Wings. He's a big hero in Detroit. And there's a bridge, an international bridge called the Gordie Howe Bridge between Windsor and Detroit. Yeah. 1948, American politician Al Gore was born, who won the 2000 presidential election, but the Supreme Court took it away, and we've been screwed ever since. Al Gore.
And then he got really into trying to save the environment, and we didn't listen to him either.
Yeah, he was in the environment before that, even before he was even vice president. But he was vice president, and he won the election, and they stopped counting ballots in Florida, and we've been screwed ever since. And Al Gore's the one that said put Social Security in a lockbox because it's not part of the regular budget. And of course, he got laughed at for that because he talks funny. He's a plain guy, and he talks funny. I'm not the list, man. Oh, he's an environmentalist, but he drives a car. Oh my God, what a hypocrite. He's an environmentalist, and he takes a plane. What a hypocrite. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And of course, all the rich people ridicule anybody who's trying to save the environment because they think it's going to cost them money. It's been proven that saving the environment does not cost money. In fact, it generates money, generates jobs. You can basically generate jobs doing anything. Anyway, 1968, U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson ended a televised speech about the Vietnam War by announcing that he would not seek re-election, which was a disaster. It was a disaster in 1968 when Johnson did it. It was a disaster last year when Biden did it. Don't drop out after you've been president already. Just run. If you lose, you lose. Don't be a pussy. Anyway, 1980, American track and field legend Jesse Owens, who won 4 gold medals in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, died at the age of 66. Wow, he only got to be 66. That's sad. But he had a very interesting life. 1992, the USS Missouri, site of the Japanese surrender in 1945, formally ending World War II, was decommissioned for a second and final time. It was the last U.S. battleship still in service. So 1992 USS Missouri was decommissioned. That's probably sitting somewhere as a historic museum. Or it's scrap metal, one of the two. 2008, American director Jules Dassin, a master of the film noir, perhaps best known for the influential heist film Riffy, died at the age of 96. He died in 2008. Our featured event this day in history, in 1889, the Eiffel Tower was inaugurated. That's right. And we've been there.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to be up top there, right when the sun went down as well, so we could see the city lights.
That's freaking awesome. Love the Eiffel Tower. Anyway, it was inaugurated on this day in 1889.
I also saw Willie Nelson there too.
I can still close my eyes and I'm still there. I do that at every place. I close my eyes and say, okay, I'm here right now. Remember this feeling. So later I can recall it. It's a little trick, you know. So if I close my eyes, I'm still there. 984 or 300 meter, 984 foot or 300 meter Eiffel Tower, a wrought iron technological masterpiece. It really is a fascinating place. Lots and lots of bolts holding it in place. Created by Gustave Eiffel to commemorate the centenary of the French Revolution, was officially inaugurated in Paris on this day in 1889. Viva la Revolution! And our feature biography, Zaha Hadid, British architect, who was born on this day in Baghdad. No, I'm sorry. She was born October 31st in 1950 in Baghdad. She died on this day in 2016 at the age of 65 in Miami. God, she only got to be 85. It says British architect. She was born in Baghdad and died in Miami. But she was a British architect.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Sounds like she was from Iraq to me.
It sounds like she has international, and maybe she just built more. She built stuff in England, right? The stuff she built is British.
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't build it herself. Of course, they had crews. And maybe she was out there by herself. You know,
she was out there, put on the mortar. Yeah. Drilling in those giant bolts. Moving the forklift.
That's right. All right, get that load going over there. Out there with their foreman. What is it called? The hard hat. Other birthdays today. The Scarts we already talked about. It is Bach's birthday. Johann Sebastian Bach's birthday. He's born in 1685. Happy birthday to Bach. Also Haydn's birthday. 2 composers. So German composer, Austrian composer, both born on March 31st. Haydn, of course, born in 1732. Cesar Chavez, not the boxer, but the American labor leader who led the American, the Migrant Farm Workers Union.
Yeah.
It's his birthday. He turns 98 today if he was still around. We already covered Al Gore's birthday. And what national day is it today? National Clams on the Half Shell Day. National Bunsen Burner Day. Bunsen burner, the thing you use in the chemistry lab to heat up. Do your chemistry, heat up your things in a little beeper. Let's heat up the supply a little heat. See what happens to this chemical reaction. Whoop, blew up the school. And It's National Crayon Day and National Prom Day. So those go together. Take your crayons to the prom. So everybody's having a party. It's National Prom Day. Uh-oh. Trouble. And of course, National Tater Day. So those are your days. Those are your spins. That's your nonsense, your mispronunciations, our world news, our U.S. news, our disease news, everything. For March 31st, 2025, on before clams on the half shell, or the hat shell. Yeah, I want a hat shell. I want a shell. I want to wear it as a hat. Call it a hat shell. There you go. Thank you. That's a new word and a new thing you can wear in your head.
Yeah, of course. Before coffee, it's the best thing since the cat got out of the bag. So we will see you tomorrow for both April the 1st, so April Fool's Day, and also Good Tuesday News Day. We'll cover all the good news. This has been Allison from the Netherlands, Roger from the west coast of the U.S. for now, and we will make sure you subscribed. You turn those notifications on and you know when we go live for tomorrow's episode so you can get all that good news for the week so you know that we're all not snuffing it yet. And, of course, there's no international days today because there isn't for a whole week, actually. 0 international. So, maybe I have to go to April. Maybe when I go to April, it'll show me. I'll be like, oh, here's some in April. Oh, yeah, there's one in April. Okay. Anyways, so we will see you then. Drink water, wear sunscreen, take care of yourself, and here is our very informative measles mic drop moment.
It's from UK. So
but this is applicable. You don't have to be British to use this advice, okay? It's applicable to everyone.
High temperature. Oof.
That's a lot of things that you don't know, but those are only the first symptoms. It gets worse as you keep going, yeah. As somebody with eczema, if I get a crazy rash, I'm always getting it checked out. Because I need to know if I'm having an outbreak, you know?
Hardest T on brown and blacks, yeah.
Yeah, if you have some weird spots on your body, that's definitely a great indicator. Yeah, do not go there and say, hey guys, I got some measles to give out. Ooh, free measles.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons. And follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.